Sufism, often described as Islamic mysticism, is a spiritual tradition within Islam that seeks to find divine love and knowledge through direct personal experience of God. While Sufism is sometimes perceived as a sect of Islam, it is more accurately described as an approach to the faith that emphasizes the inner, esoteric aspects of Islam over its outward, exoteric practices. Sufis, the practitioners of Sufism, are known for their deep devotion, poetic expressions of love for God, and a quest for spiritual purity. Historical background. The roots of Sufism can be traced back to the early centuries of Islam, although its precise origins are debated. Some scholars argue that Sufism emerged as a reaction to the growing materialism and political power of the Islamic Empire, particularly under the Umayyad and Abbasid caliphates. Early Sufis were ascetics who distanced themselves from worldly pursuits, seeking instead a life of simplicity and meditation focused on God. This asceticism was inspired by the Prophet Muhammad's own practices of prayer, meditation, and simplicity. By the 9th and 10th centuries, Sufism began to formalize as a distinct movement within Islam. Influential early figures include Hassan al-Basri, 642–728, who emphasized the fear of God and the importance of repentance, and Rabia al-Adawiyya, 713–801, who is famous for her concept of divine love, where she sought to love God for His sake alone, without any hope of paradise or fear of hell. Theoretical foundations of Sufism. Sufism is grounded in several key concepts that guide the spiritual journey of the Sufi. The central tenet is the concept of Tawheed, the oneness of God, which is the foundation of all Islamic belief. For Sufis, Tawheed goes beyond intellectual affirmation and requires the believer to experience God's unity in every aspect of life, leading to the annihilation of the ego, or fana, and ultimately to the state of Baqa, the abiding presence with God. Another key concept is the idea of the heart as the seat of spiritual knowledge. Sufis believe that while the intellect is important, true knowledge of God can only be attained through the purification of the heart. This process, known as tazkiyah, involves rigorous self-discipline, meditation, and the constant remembrance of God, dhikr. The spiritual path in Sufism is often described as a journey through various stages and stations, maqamat and ahwal, culminating in union with the divine. These stages typically begin with repentance and include various practices like poverty, faqr, patience, sabr, gratitude, shukr, and trust in God, tawakkul. Sufis often undertake this journey under the guidance of a spiritual master or sheikh, who provides instruction and oversight. Sufi practices. The practices of Sufism are designed to help the practitioner achieve closeness to God and are often characterized by their intensity and repetition. One of the most central practices is dhikr, or the remembrance of God, which involves the repetitive recitation of God's names or other religious phrases. This practice can be performed individually or in groups and is meant to cultivate a constant awareness of God's presence. Sufis are also known for their poetry and music, which are used as vehicles for expressing divine love and longing. Some of the most famous Sufi poets include Jalal al-Din Rumi, whose works have gained international acclaim for their beauty and depth, and Hafiz, whose poetry explores the themes of love, loss, and the divine. The use of music and poetry in Sufism, known as sama, is often associated with the whirling dervishes, particularly in the Mevlevi order, who use dance as a form of meditation and worship. The concept of suhbat, or companionship, is also vital in Sufism. Sufis often gather in spiritual communities or orders, tariqas, led by a sheikh. These gatherings provide a space for collective worship, instruction, and the transmission of spiritual knowledge. The tariqa also serves as a support network, helping members navigate the challenges of the spiritual path. Sufi orders and expansion. Over time, Sufism spread across the Islamic world, giving rise to various Sufi orders, each with its own practices, teachings, and organizational structures. Some of the most prominent Sufi orders include 1. Qadiriyya, founded by Abd al-Qadir al-Jilani, 1077–1166, this is one of the oldest and most widespread Sufi orders. It emphasizes adherence to the Sharia, Islamic law, alongside spiritual practice. 2. Naqshbandiyya, known for its silent dhikr, the Naqshbandi order is one of the most influential Sufi orders in Central Asia and the Indian subcontinent. It was founded by Bahauddin Naqshband Bukhari, 1318–1389. 3. Chishtiya. The Chishti order, originating in Afghanistan and India, is renowned for its focus on love, tolerance, and openness. It was instrumental in the spread of Islam in South Asia, particularly through its inclusive practices and social services. 4. Mevleviya. Associated with the followers of Jalal al-Din Rumi, the Mevlevi order is famous for its whirling dance rituals, which symbolize the soul's ascent towards God. 5. Shadhiliya. Founded by Abul Hasan al-Shadhili, 1196–1258, this North African order emphasizes the remembrance of God and has produced many prominent scholars and saints. As Sufism spread, it often adapted to local cultures, blending with pre-existing religious practices and contributing to the formation of various regional Islamic traditions. In some places, Sufi saints, or walis, became focal points of popular devotion, and their tombs turned into pilgrimage sites. This process of localization allowed Sufism to thrive in diverse environments, from the deserts of North Africa to the steppes of Central Asia and the islands of Southeast Asia. Sufism and society. Throughout history, Sufism has played a significant role in Islamic society, influencing not only religious practices but also social, cultural, and political life. Sufi orders often functioned as social institutions, providing education, charity, and community support. They were also involved in missionary activities, spreading Islam to new regions and peoples. However, Sufism's relationship with mainstream Islamic authority has not always been harmonious. At various times, Sufis have been criticized by Orthodox scholars for their mystical practices, which were seen as innovations, bid'ah, that could lead to heresy. The tension between Sufism and Orthodoxy came to a head during the 18th and 19th centuries, with the rise of reformist movements like Wahhabism, which sought to purify Islam of what they saw as un-Islamic practices, including many associated with Sufism. Despite these challenges, Sufism has remained a vital part of the Islamic tradition. In many parts of the world, Sufi practices continue to be an essential aspect of Muslim spirituality, offering a means for individuals to experience a more profound connection with the divine. Sufism in the modern world. In the modern era, Sufism has continued to evolve, facing new challenges and opportunities. The 20th century saw a resurgence of interest in Sufism, both within the Muslim world and in the West. This revival was partly fueled by the writings of Sufi scholars and the translation of Sufi literature into Western languages. Sufi teachings, with their emphasis on love, peace, and inner transformation, have resonated with many people searching for spiritual depth in an increasingly materialistic world. At the same time, Sufism has faced opposition from some quarters, particularly from Islamist movements that view it as a deviation from the pure teachings of Islam. In some countries, Sufi practices have been restricted or suppressed, and Sufi shrines have been attacked by extremist groups. Nonetheless, Sufism continues to be a source of inspiration and spiritual renewal for millions of Muslims worldwide. Its message of divine love, unity, and compassion remains as relevant today as it was centuries ago, offering a path to inner peace and closeness to God.